Welcome and thank you for joining us for the second half hour of The Factor Uncensored. A court has reinstated a parent's lawsuit against TikTok. Tawana Anderson's 10-year-old daughter, Nyla, died in 2021 after participating in a blackout challenge. It required someone to choke themselves until they passed out. Nyla used her mother's purse strap to try it. It didn't work out well. Her mother's lawsuit was originally dismissed in 2022, but now she's allowed to move forward with that legal action. Why now? Joining us to talk about it here on The Factor Uncensored, Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld of Houston Community College and therapist Dr. Holly LeMcCann. Glad to have you here on The Factor Uncensored. So, Dr. von Biedenfeld, first of all, there was a law written long before internet or social media platforms became popular, saying you cannot sue or hold them liable for action as a result of someone following or doing something. But now we have this ruling because most social media platforms were protected in the past.
Absolutely. And when we think about the Decency Act of 1996, pre-2000, that's based on a 1934 statute. So when we're going back to FDR, the underlying idea with many of these statutes and precedent is how do we encourage beneficial use that goes for land, technology, and other aspects of our economy, while also protecting individuals. And in this case, it's slightly different, as the Third Circuit found. 230 did not necessarily relate to internet providers' independence, and we haven't considered the full realm or ramifications of AI in our technological environment.
And things could change again.
And they could change again. Plessy v. Ferguson, suddenly Brown versus Board of Education, right? Citizens United, and now we've got Dobbs overturning Roe v. Wade. Stare decisis isn't as decisive as it once was, but at the end of the day, many of these laws were based in a concept of people having common sense, and common sense isn't as common as it once was.
How is this different from TV if we say, let's do a challenge here on TV, and if you choke yourself out and pass out, you've done well?
Independence, and we've seen this in British cases. I mean, with GDPR, we've got the European Union having a much more protective sense of their citizen community, not only privacy rights, but also their actions. When independent users choose a channel, that puts the autonomy in your hands. When an algorithm chooses something, directs you, particularly as a minor, as in this case, then we're saying TikTok told you to do this.
And of course, that's the basis of the case. The algorithm said, little girl, go here. And so when you see something like that and you see the suffering of the mother and the death of a child, how difficult is that to deal with?
It's difficult on so many levels. First, we have it at the familial level. You know, the parents are burying their 10-year-old daughter. Then we also have the social aspect. This child belonged to a community. She was a part of a school, maybe a church group, or maybe even Girl Scouts. And to look at the ramifications that it has emotionally on the parents, there's a sense of responsibility that society says the parents need to take, because this child was allowed to have access, first of all, to social media, and then secondly, she carried out a challenge. I would be willing to bet her mother had no idea that this is what her child was, you know, potentially doing, which led to her untimely death. But there's so many layers to this, and we're talking about it from a mental health perspective. And when we're looking at, I did a little research myself on how did this come to be, and even looking at the terms of service for TikTok, it says that if you must be 18 years old, and if you're not, then you need to consult with your parents and make sure that you understand the rules. And when we're looking at the developmental level of a child who is really, you know, struggling to find their identity, that is unreasonable, in my opinion.
And for individuals out there, and here's my question, or here's my situation. If you have someone, God forbid, harm your child, assault your child, that's a person, but you're talking about the internet. Does it make it difficult, easier, what?
It makes it more difficult because the children have access to social media and electronics regardless of what the parents' rules are in the home. It happens all the time. The schools are issuing electronics for the children to use as, learning tools.
You get tablets in school.
You get issued those in the Chromebooks and everything else. And then there are children whose families allow them to have cell phones. So children are willing to share. They want to be friends. If you ask, let me use your phone, let me look at your TikTok, and it doesn't even have to be your account. You can use a friend's phone and have access to it. So the parental control aspect of it,
You've lost it. You've lost control.
Yes, unless your child is literally with you.
We want to thank you guys for joining us here on The Factor.